So, what is operations? Well, it's in its simplest form. Operations are the things that you and your people do on a daily basis that makes the business run as effectively, as efficiently as possible. It's the blocking and tackling that happens every day within your business. That's operations. And I find that interesting to think of it as blocking and tackling. If you think of you think of sports teams, professional sports teams, a professional football team. The individuals on that team have been playing that sport for 20 or more years, quite possibly. Little league, all through high school and college, and then they make it to the pros. They are the elite performers of that sport, the best of the best. And yet, during the season, what do they spend time doing between games? If the games are on Sundays, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, what do they spend time doing? Practicing. Practicing. These are the elite players, and they continue to practice day after day after day. Practice tackling and blocking and passing and catching, practicing plays, offense, defense. So my question to you is, as you think about your business and think about your operations, what happens day in, day out, how often are your players spending time practicing? Not playing the game, practicing. So if you're a retail business, how much time are you spending practicing, working with customers, both happy and maybe not so happy? Do you practice those scenarios day in, day out? Practice providing, if you're in the service business, providing whatever service that you provide. How often does your team spend practicing those services? I think that's an interesting question. So at the simplest level, operations, the things you do on a daily basis, the blocking and tackling. At the highest level, operations are what happens is it's how we implement our plans, our strategy, everything we talked about in the first module that supports the growth of our business, the growth of our enterprise development. It's execution. Operations is execution. It's what's in between our plan and the results that we get from that plan. It's the execution. So when I think of operations, oftentimes I'll think of a book, a manual, an operations plan, a manual. Many companies have such a book that says, okay, this is how this business operates. This is how we do this procedure, this system, an operations manual. Does your company have an operations manual, a book that says this is how this company operates? How was that manual developed? What's the impact of having that manual, good or bad? What are the benefits of having it? Oftentimes, such a manual provides consistency in how a business operates, so that whatever we do on Monday, we do on Tuesday. What we do on Wednesday, we do the following Wednesday. Consistency in our operations is a byproduct of having that operations manual. And one of my favorite stories around an operations manual, I was doing a program very similar to this in Savannah a number of years ago. We had a guest speaker, a gentleman who had sold his business. He was a general contractor. He built high-end homes in the Savannah area, had done that for many years. And he told the group that was assembled that day, he said, our business, we average about $100,000 a year in profit. And he said, if he ever was curious about what his business was worth, there are a number of ways that companies are valued. But one way is a multiple of earnings, and the average for small businesses is a multiple of maybe 4 to 6, depending on what industry that you're in and how fast you're growing and such, and the economy. And so the average is a multiple of 4 to 6. And so he said, at $100,000 a year in profit, he said our business was worth about $400,000. He said one of our biggest expenses was when we were building these homes was the interest that we paid on the construction loans. Because as long as the home was being built, they were paying interest on these loans, a considerable amount of money. He said also, his clients were always in a rush to get their homes faster. So he said, on average, we built these homes in about 6 months. And he said, I figured if we could cut that construction time from 6 months to 3 months, we could save a lot of money on interest, and our customers would be much happier getting into their homes faster. So he said, well, how could we do that? How could we reduce our construction time? He said, I decided to put together a book, an operations manual, and on how we could build a home in 90 days. And rather than starting with the first day of construction, he started with the 90th day of construction, which was the day the family moved into their new home, the 90th day. And then he said, okay, what needs to happen on the 89th day so that the home is completed on the 90th day? And he came up with a list of things that had to happen on that last day. And then the 88th day and the 87th day and the 60th day and the 40th day, all the way working backwards to the first day. He came up with a book on how to build a home in 90 days. And after time, he was successful in cutting the amount of time to build a home from 6 months to 3 months, 90 days. He was successful. Saved a lot of money in interest charges and happy customers. So then he reassessed what his business was worth, because before $100,000 a year in profit times 4, his business was worth about $400,000. Not long after that, he was able to sell his business for $2 million. $2 million. Well, how did he get such a high number? Well, one, because of the shortened amount of time to build homes, he doubled his profit from $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year. Secondly, so then $200,000 a year, and he sold his business for $2 million. You can do the math. The multiple went from 4 to a multiple of 10 is what he got when he sold his business. 10 times $200,000 equals $2 million. How did he accomplish that? Well, the person who bought his business had never built a home in his life. He didn't have to, because in buying this business, he got this book, this book on building a home in 90 days, a very most valuable book. In fact, the speaker, the owner of the business, referred to this as his $2 million book. He said, because of this book that I designed that allowed me to build homes in 90 days, I was able to sell my business for a much higher multiple than I could have otherwise. He said, this became my $2 million book. How would you like to have a $2 million book? This is what happens when we spend time on the design of our business. We develop this operations manual. That's what we're talking about in this module. How do we go about doing that? How do we go about creating that?